Your air conditioner is running right now. It has been running for hours. It will run all afternoon, all evening, deep into the night. And your upstairs bedroom is still uncomfortable. The floor near the hallway feels warm. The unit outside is turning over money into the meter every minute it runs. And the strange part is this: there is nothing wrong with your air conditioner. There is nothing wrong with your ductwork. There is nothing wrong with the thermostat you keep nudging lower every hour. Your house is fighting your air conditioner, and it is winning. My name is Silas Yoder. I spent 40 years inspecting old farmhouses across Pennsylvania. Stone foundations, cracked plaster walls, sagging porches, attics with joists a foot wide. I walked into these houses in every season, and I learned something in those 40 years that no HVAC contractor is going to tell you, because it is not what they sell. An old farmhouse built in 1878 with no air conditioning, no forced air, no compressor, and no ductwork can stay cooler on a 95-degree afternoon than a modern house built in 1992 with a brand new 3-ton central air unit. I have measured it with my own thermometer, and when I first saw it, I did not believe it either. The reason is not magic. It is not old wisdom lost to time. It is engineering. And once you understand what the old builders knew and what modern construction quietly forgot, you will look at your own house differently for the rest of your life. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 4 invisible problems that are probably happening inside your walls, above your ceiling, and behind your ducts right now. I'm going to tell you where they come from, why they got worse after the 1970s, and what you can actually do about them. Not miracle products, not banned inventions. Real problems with real fixes. Some of them free, some of them a weekend of work. Let me tell you what your air conditioner is actually doing before we talk about why your house is winning the fight. Air conditioning was invented in 1902 by a young engineer named Willis Carrier at the Sackett and Wilhelm's printing plant in Brooklyn, New York. Carrier was 25 years old. He had just finished his master's at Cornell University, and his job was not to keep people cool. His job was to keep paper from wrinkling. The printing plant used color inks, and every time the humidity changed, the paper stretched and shrank. The colors would not line up. The whole print run would be ruined. Carrier's solution, drawn on paper on July 17, 1902, was the first mechanical system in history that could control humidity and temperature at the same time. He was granted the patent, number 808,897, on January 2, 1906. He called it an apparatus for treating air. He did not call it an air conditioner. That word came later. Now here's the important thing. That first machine and every air conditioner that came after it for the next 50 years was designed for buildings that had a specific problem: too much moisture and too much heat generated by the process happening inside. Printing plants, cotton mills, movie theaters full of people. The system worked by taking the heat that was already there and moving it outside. For 50 years, from 1902 to the early 1950s, air conditioning was an industrial and commercial technology. Then it started arriving in American homes. The first widely marketed window units came out in the late 1930s, but they were expensive and rare. Central home air conditioning became common after World War II, and by the 1970s, it was standard in new construction. And this is where the story turns. Because the moment central air conditioning became standard, builders stopped designing houses to stay cool on their own. Why would they? The homeowner was going to run a machine. The machine would move the heat. The house did not need to breathe. The house did not need to shade itself. The house did not need thick walls or a cupola or a deep porch. The house just needed a bigger air conditioner. So the walls got thinner, the roofs got darker, the porches got smaller. The windows stopped facing south to catch winter sun and stopped shading themselves in summer. The attics got sealed up with fiberglass and no cross ventilation. And every house built after roughly 1970 was designed on the quiet assumption that a machine would do what the house used to do for itself. The problem is that machine costs money, every month, forever. Now let me tell you what I found in those old Pennsylvania farmhouses. I stood inside a stone farmhouse in Lancaster County on a July afternoon a few years back. It was 91 degrees outside. The stone walls of that house were 18 inches thick. The porch went all the way around the south and west sides, deep enough to keep direct sun off the walls until mid-afternoon. There was a small tower at the peak of the roof, a wooden box with slatted openings on all four sides. Farmers called it a cupola. It had been sitting on that roof since 1874. The temperature inside the main floor of that house was 72 degrees. No air conditioning, no fans, no moving parts of any kind. Just a building that knew how to handle a hot afternoon. I have measured this in dozens of old homes over 4 decades. The best ones, the ones with all their original systems still working, stay 8 to 15 degrees cooler inside than the outside air on a peak summer day. And every one of those homes uses the same 4 principles that modern construction quietly abandoned. I'm going to walk you through those 4 principles now, and I'm going to tell you which ones you can still use in your own house, no matter what year it was built. The first principle is that heat comes into a house mostly from above, not from the walls, not from the windows, at least not as much as most people think. From the roof and the ceiling. The U.S. Department of Energy has published this number in their building science research for decades. In a house with a ventilated attic, 65 to 80% of the heat that reaches the living space below comes through as radiation, not conduction or convection. Radiation is invisible infrared energy. It travels in straight lines from a hot surface to a cooler one. On a summer afternoon, dark asphalt shingles can reach 160 degrees at the surface. That heat radiates down through the attic and into the ceiling of the room where you are sitting. Fiberglass insulation, the pink bats sitting between your ceiling joists, was designed to slow conductive heat, which is heat moving through physical contact. It does not stop radiation very well. So your ceiling absorbs that radiant heat all afternoon and then radiates it into your living space all evening, long after the sun has gone down. Your air conditioner is fighting a ceiling that is warm to the touch at 10 o'clock at night. Old farmhouses handled this with 3 things. A cupola at the peak that let the hottest air escape by physics alone. Gable vents on the 2 ends of the attic that let cool air come in as hot air went out. And a wide roof overhang, sometimes 3 or 4 feet, that kept direct sun from ever hitting the walls of the house during the peak sun hours of summer. The overhang was calibrated to the sun's angle. In winter, when the sun sat low in the sky, the light came under the overhang and warmed the house. In summer, when the sun was high, the overhang cast a shadow on the walls. Modern houses typically have a 6 to 12-inch overhang. Some have none at all. There is nothing shading the walls. The sun beats on the south and west sides of the house all afternoon and drives that heat straight through into the living space. I'm going to come back to the roof in a moment because there is a specific thing you can check tonight in your own attic. But first, the second principle. The second principle is that your house is leaking conditioned air into the attic without you knowing it. And this is where I want to be careful because most homeowners do not realize how significant this leakage is until someone shows them the numbers. The Energy Star program, which is a joint program of the U.S. Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency, has been measuring residential duct leakage for over 20 years. Their published figures are consistent. The typical American home with forced air heating and cooling loses 20 to 30% of the conditioned air moving through the duct system. 20 to 30%. That is not an exaggeration. That is the number they use as a baseline. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, which is a Department of Energy research facility, did a large field study of residential duct systems in California. They found the average combined supply and return leakage came in at 22% of the total air handler flow. That is 1 out of every 5 cubic feet of cool air your air conditioner produces never reaches a single room. It leaks out into the attic, into the crawl space, into the walls. Now think about what this means. You paid to have that air cooled. Your air conditioner used electricity to remove heat from that air. That cool air was supposed to arrive in your bedroom and lower the temperature, and a quarter of it just went straight into your attic to warm up the very space that is already too hot. And here is the part that connects the 2 problems together. The hotter your attic gets from the sun beating on your roof all day, the harder your air conditioner has to work to cool the air moving through the ducts running through that attic. And the more air that leaks out into the attic through duct joints, the hotter the attic gets, the harder the air conditioner works. It is a loop. Every part of the system is fighting every other part. The old farmhouses I inspected did not have ducts. They did not have this problem at all. Their heating came from a wood stove or a coal furnace in the center of the house that radiated heat outward through the walls. Their cooling came from the passive systems I already described. There was no duct network running through a hot attic. There was no supply register in the wrong corner of the wrong room. There was just a house that handled its own temperature. The third principle is that most old houses had a physical layer between the attic and the living space that was more than just insulation. Older farmhouses often had solid plaster ceilings backed by rough sawn lath. That plaster acted as a slow thermal mass. It absorbed heat gradually during the day and released it gradually at night. Modern drywall does not do this. Drywall responds to temperature quickly. It heats up fast and cools down fast. Your ceiling in a modern house essentially matches the temperature of your attic within an hour of the sun going down. And that brings me to the fourth principle, which is where I want you to look inside your own house tonight. Every American house built after roughly 1960 has an attic access, a hatch, a rectangular panel in a hallway ceiling that you can push up to get into the attic. Sometimes it is a pull-down stair. Sometimes it is just a square of drywall sitting in a frame. If you go stand in your hallway right now and look up, you will probably find one. That hatch is one of the largest energy holes in your entire house, and almost nobody talks about it. Think about what it is. Your attic sits at 130 degrees on a July afternoon. Your ceiling below has R30 or R40 insulation across every square foot. Except right here, at this hatch, there is a piece of quarter-inch drywall or thin plywood with no insulation on top and no seal around the edges. The gap between the panel and the frame is often a quarter-inch or more. Multiply that thin gap by the entire perimeter of the hatch, and you have an opening the size of a small window connecting your 130-degree attic directly to your 72-degree living space. Hot air pushes down through that gap. Cool air from your living space rises up through it. Your air conditioner fights it every hour of every day. The Department of Energy has documented this specific problem in their Building America research program. They have measured attic hatches and estimated that a poorly sealed hatch in an unconditioned attic can leak enough air over a summer to be equivalent to leaving a small window cracked open all season. And the fix is a piece of rigid foam insulation and some weather stripping. I'm going to stay on this topic in the next video because it is that important, but I want you to know it exists tonight because you can go look at yours before you go to bed. Now here is where I need to be honest with you about what these methods can and cannot do. Everything I have just described works best in temperate climates. Pennsylvania, Ohio, upstate New York, Kentucky, parts of Missouri, Colorado, the mountain regions. Places where the summer heat comes and goes with the sun, and the nights cool down enough to let a house shed the day's heat. If you live in the Gulf Coast, deep South Texas, or coastal Florida, some of these old-world cooling methods still help, but you are always going to need mechanical cooling for at least part of the day, because the outside air itself is too warm and humid to give a passive system a chance to reset overnight. I am not going to tell you a farmhouse method will replace your air conditioner in Houston. It will not. What it will do is reduce how hard your air conditioner has to work, which lowers your bill and extends the life of the equipment. The same honesty applies to the fixes. Sealing your attic hatch is a real project with a real result, but the result is a small percentage improvement, not a miracle. Restoring gable vent flow in a house that has had them sealed up for years might drop your upstairs bedroom temperature 4 or 5 degrees on a summer evening. Adding a radiant barrier under your roof rafters, which is a reflective foil that blocks radiant heat, has been measured by the Department of Energy in attics with R19 insulation to reduce ceiling heat gain by 16 to 42%, depending on climate. That is a real range from real research. It is not 100%. It is not forever. It is a solid, honest reduction that pays back the cost of the material in 1 to 3 summers, depending on where you live. I'm going to tell you exactly how to install radiant barrier foil in a later video. It is a job you can do yourself with a staple gun and a utility knife. The material costs somewhere between $30 and $60 for a 500 square foot roll. It is not banned. It is not hidden. You can walk into a hardware store and buy it. Almost nobody knows to ask for it. Here's what I want you to do tonight. 3 things, all of them free. None of them require any tools. First, go to your hallway or bedroom ceiling and find your attic hatch. Push it open and stand there for 1 minute. Feel the temperature difference between your attic and your hallway. Now look at the seal around the panel. If you can see daylight through it, if you can feel a warm draft coming down, if the panel does not sit tight in the frame, You have found one of the largest energy holes in your house. Do not fix it tonight. Just find it and know it is there. Second, walk around the outside of your house right before sunset. Look at the west-facing wall. Put your hand on it. If it is hot to the touch, if it feels like it has been baking all afternoon, that wall is going to be radiating heat into your rooms until midnight. That is the wall your air conditioner is fighting all evening. In an old farmhouse, there would have been a porch or a large tree shading that wall. In your house, there is probably nothing. Third, go upstairs after 9 at night when the outside temperature has dropped. Feel the temperature of your ceiling. Reach up with your hand and touch it. If the ceiling is still warm, warmer than the rest of the room, warmer than the walls, that ceiling has stored heat all day, and it is radiating it down into your bedroom while you try to sleep. Your air conditioner is going to have to run all night to cancel that heat out. None of this is miracle knowledge. It is not banned by the industry. It is not hidden by anyone. It is just the physics of buildings, and modern construction stopped paying attention to it once we could all buy a compressor. The next video I am putting together is going to walk you through the attic hatch specifically. Every step, the materials, the cost, the mistakes to avoid, where in the country it makes the most difference. Because after 40 years of walking through Pennsylvania farmhouses and modern subdivisions both, the attic hatch is the single fastest, cheapest, most overlooked fix I know of, and I want you to have it. Before that video comes out, I want you to do one thing for me. Drop a comment below with your state, the year your house was built, and what you found when you looked at your attic hatch tonight. Was it sealed? Was it gapped? Did you feel warm air coming down through it? I read every comment, and the stories you all send me from your own houses are what tells me which of these old-world engineering problems is the most common in this country right now. If you have not already, subscribe, because the next video is the attic hatch fix. And after that, we are going into the ducts, the problem that steals a quarter of your cool air before it ever reaches a room. And after that, we are going to the roof itself, and I'm going to tell you what actually cools it, what doesn't, and why the answer is more honest than the internet is currently making it sound. Your air conditioner is not broken. Your house was built to fight it. And once you know that, you can start giving your house what it actually needs to stop fighting. I will see you in the next one.